Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for The Mandalorian Season 3. One does not speak unless one knows. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4, Chapter 20, titled The Foundling, directed by Carl Weathers. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we get stolen by a giant mama bird, let me introduce you to my fellow Mandalorians joining me for this episode. First up, he's the juxtapositional Django-loving, Jar Jar justifying, Jawa junkin' Justin the Lumpawaru Lawrence.
What's going on? We didn't get Jar Jar today, but we got the next best thing, so very excited.
Hey. You know, some would say the better thing, for sure,
yes,
for sure.
For sure.
But alongside him, we are stoked to have joining us the admirable and authentic Orabesh reading astromech from Ahch-To Radio. He's Alden, the Dianoga Dyad Diaz.
I don't ever want to leave this alliteration planet that we just landed on. I'm blown away. While you were doing the Jawa and the Jar Jar and everything, I was like, is he gonna do one with A? How does he do one with A?
You know what? It's a website. I literally, the amount of Google searches I have, Star Wars words that start with the letter this for every different host that we have on here. Yeah, man. Great to have you on. Wonderful to get to talk to you about this short but sweet chapter of The Mandalorian. Before we dive in, I encountered you on Twitter, where I have to say it was so refreshing to see someone speak so positively in a sea of negative takes on that platform. And I immediately went to your YouTube. I watched your discussion with Ryan Johnson, and he called it having a generosity of soul. For our listeners who might not know you, who are you, and what are you all about?
What I'm all about is advocating for this stuff. I feel like in a certain way where, like you said, Ahch-To Radio, I do the hosting, I do the podcasting, I do stuff in Star Wars and other fandoms and things like that, and I work in radio full time, and so being plugged in is my life. That's what I've been doing. First time I podcasted was when I was 14, and now I'm 27.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been doing this nonstop for years, and in some form or another, reviewing comic books, whether that's in written form, video form, reviewing movies, websites that have risen and fallen, and conventions and all that stuff, while developing the actual career and everything, and doing stuff at iHeart and other places like Fandango or StarTrek.com, stuff like that. And in that, I came to a realization very quickly, like Ryan said with that wonderful generosity line, is that you're always going to like and dislike things, but why lead with the dislike? A lot of the times, a criticism that I get, or just a regular observation that I get, is like, wow, you really like a lot of stuff. You really like everything. It's actually very far from the truth. It's just that I don't take the time to make that my presence, to make that my feed. If I talked about everything that I disliked, it'd be very easy, and it could go on all day. But why would I do that? And so, because I love Star Wars, it's like my Star Wars output is trying to engage with the work. I have my favorites, I have my least favorites, like everybody else does. I have stuff that works for me, doesn't work for me. But what I want doesn't really play into my analysis of it as much as I can separate them, because once it's made, what I want doesn't matter. It's, what did they do? What did they try to do? Did that work for me? What does that mean? And I think that in a world where, as you guys both know, the more reductive stuff gets the ad money and the clicks and everything, it's like at that point, what we do is kind of an act of resistance, but people can look at something like what we're going to talk about today with a certain Jedi, and they could say, oh, that's a fan service deep cut, it's a cameo. And it's like, okay, fine, cynically, sure, maybe, but what does it mean? How did it affect our characters? What's going on there? I feel like I never really left English class, and I try to keep that going in terms of the work.
I love that. And I love the idea that I think going into this, it's you kind of speak with a reverence of the creation of Star Wars with as much reverence as you have for Star Wars itself. And I don't think that's something that everyone necessarily does. So that was one of the things that I really appreciated, was I noticed like, this guy's he really knows his stuff in terms of like taking the time to think about the actors, the cinematographers, the producers, all the different components that go into making the things we love, and how they're just as important as the story itself. And I really did appreciate that about you. I wanted to ask, to kind of give our listeners a good sense of your core fandom for Star Wars. This is going to be tough, okay? But you've got 4 spots. Your Star Wars Mount Rushmore. Who are the characters that you're putting on your Star Wars Mount Rushmore?
2 of them I could fire from the hip very easily, which is great. So that takes away half the work. It's Han Solo, Sabine Wren.
Oh,
so that's
nice.
That's right there.
Good
boom, boom.
choices.
That's 1A, 1B. Han for my entire life. Sabine for now almost 10 years. Next year's 10 years of Rebels, which is nuts.
And we're going to get to see her again pretty soon.
Live action.
Pretty soon. I don't want to date your episode too much, but obviously we're recording this one after the Foundling. Episode after the Foundling, directed by Peter Ramsey, who's directing on Ahsoka. So I'm officially on Sabine Watch. I'm on Sabine Watch now.
I like this.
I'm scoping. But yeah, so that's 2. I think 3, maybe Kylo Ren / Ben.
Okay.
And then 4, it honestly at this point could be Din Djarin. That's a 4 that I've given before that I feel comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But then that 4 slot does sort of, it ebbs and flows. If I'm in the middle of a High Republic book, I have my favorite High Republic character. I have my favorite, So that does vary. But yeah, that's the 4 that I feel comfortable giving. And it's also a nice spread of eras and television and film and things like that. It feels whole.
I love it. Yeah, definitely a good spread sort of across the fandom in terms of old school, new school sort of choices. I was trying to think of like what I would choose myself, and oh boy, it was tough. For me, I'm going to throw out Mace Windu. Big fan of Mace Windu. I think he's pretty dope. I wish we had more of him. I think everyone does. Obi-Wan Kenobi, because Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maul. I think is such a dynamic and interesting character. And then Ahsoka actually is kind of my 4th spot. If we're leaving that 4th spot as like an open, can sort of ebb and flow, then I probably would put Ahsoka in there, and I'm stoked to see more Ahsoka in the future.
I love that yours had Maul right behind Kenobi, right where he wants to be at all times, just creeping on him.
That's him. Normally, you know what? I'm in the middle of a move right now. I got my Obi-Wan mythos here. My Maul mythos has just been packed up, which I mean that's kind of makes sense because he was the first to go, I guess. Unfortunately, Justin, how about yourself? Do you have a Star Wars Mount Rushmore?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
I didn't prepare him for this one.
Yeah, you didn't. I would have to say Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker is definitely on this Mount Rushmore. I'm a huge fan of Ezra from the animated series as well. Loved Rebels, and I think by that standard, I'd also put Sabine on my Star Wars Mount Rushmore. And then finally, I'd have to go with Ahsoka. I loved Ahsoka. I was kind of iffy at the beginning of Clone Wars, but I
think a lot of people were.
She really grew into her character, and her story was absolutely fantastic, and to see it continued, so excited. I'm so excited to see what's next for her journey.
Interesting, a character like her being someone that I think a lot of the fandom eventually came around to, and I think we've got a character, or at least an actor, who portrayed a character that I know a lot of the fandom has hopefully come around to, especially after this episode. So let's get into it. Before we're rescued by someone truly amazing, in so many ways. Let's get to this week's episode. So we open this week as we see the entire Mandalorian covert training looking like Spawn Island before a match of Fortnite. And we cut away to see Grogu hanging out with some moving rocks, which are revealed to be some type of hermit crab. As Din picks him up, he says, "Playtime's over," and all the little rock crabs crawl into the water. Grogu is then placed down in front of the same Foundling we met in episode 1, and the two of them spar off in a wrist dart shooting challenge. And after 2 rounds of getting shot, Din reminds Grogu that he's seen what he can do and that it's okay to show them. Then Grogu does a couple of flips back and forth and then shoots his challenger 3 times, thus winning the challenge. So let's stop here right off the bat. What did we think, Alden, what did you think of this opening and getting to see our sweet little Grogu shot with paintballs?
On a very surface level, I never realized how purely adorable it would be when Grogu started getting weapons attachments and things. Like
so
when
big.
that gauntlet, when they said darts, I was like, surely he's not actually gonna wear his own Mando bracer. And then when they put it on his wrist, I was like, so cute.
It's on his arm.
I heard all the dollar signs and cha-chings and everything going off because now they can just sell another doll this time he shoots things. So I loved that. But then on the emotional level, it was a reminder, I think, to Grogu and therefore to us that Luke's choice of you can return to your father or you can continue training as a Jedi Knight was not the end of the choices. And I think Grogu realized in that moment choosing dad also means choosing all of this. And can I synthesize myself with what they do? Because he does have a Jedi history that goes back even pre-Din, as we see in this episode, even more of, in some huge ways. And so it's interesting to think, like, it all hangs over him now, too. Din has to figure out his Mando journey, and now so does Grogu. After 2 seasons, he's armoring up. He's having to do the training, and it's cool to think that Din carries the weapon, the Darksaber, which is of a Mandalorian Jedi, and his son is now going to be one, too.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
And I also loved the Bo-Katan moment too, of like being the stepmom. Like he's just proud of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was so cute. Yeah, no, it was an absolutely adorable scene to see, Grogu kind of like struggle with how to use these darts and face off against, I believe it's Ragnar is his name.
Yeah.
And, Din is obviously clearly being the dad, pushing Grogu to become what
he's like
he
a dad
knows.
at like a sports game. Like
exactly. Like, you can
like,
do
don't
it,
look
son.
at me.
You can do it.
Look
you
at
can
him.
do it.
Yeah.
And, embracing the training of the Mandalore, over that of the Jedi training. And, we do get to see that bit of Jedi training because what I love in this moment is that Grogu is communicating with these hermit crabs. He is training with the Force by connecting with the life around him. And I think that's so beautiful to see how he has come so far in his own Jedi training in that moment. And then here you have Din, the dad. Nope, you're not playing with rocks. Come on, let's go. You're not a Jedi anymore. Let's go. You got to be a Mandalorian now. This might be a bit of an opportunity for Din to understand how to embrace some of that training, how we need to understand that he is still I guess a child of the Force, if you will. Yeah, I think that this was a very interesting moment to just see how this journey for Grogu is going to be maybe bumpy a little bit at times.
Well, and I also love Grogu's apprehension here when he does kind of do the look back at his dad little look that was just super cute. But I think I'm wondering if it was something that was imbued upon him by Luke, like as if to say like it's not safe to show others that you're a Jedi, right? And so maybe that's why he's kind of holding back initially, is that
maybe not to fight.
Well, maybe to kind of hold off and fight. But I do think like you got to imagine Luke's like, dude, don't let people know you're a Jedi right now.
Yeah, and I think that there's also an interesting like sort of silent kind of little arc that's happened where when we had Grogu in season 1, I've always talked about his Force arc has been really beautiful to see. He goes from being very reactionary in season 1 of Mandalorian, where his Force moments are desperation instinct calls, like the Mudhorn, I will block it. Or, Cara Dune, he thought his dad was in danger, so he used Force choke. And then the flames, he was able to block the flames. By the end of Book of Boba Fett, he's making conscious choices. Like, oh, the Rancor just needs a nap. Like, he's being way more intuitive and connecting. You've also seen his perceptiveness grow in terms of violence. Like, season 1, he's kind of along for the ride, like a baby or more of a pet. Season 2, it was a big trailer moment where it's like, oh, dad's about to end some fools, and he closes his pram and locks up.
Yeah.
It's like, is the fact that Grogu was in Order 66, and that's part of his trauma, and we know that he suppressed a lot, is he kind of like, I don't want us to shoot people. I've seen what happens there.
Yes.
I've continued to see what happens. You guys are all good with that. I don't want to, I don't want to make that part of what I do. It's dark and sad, but it's possible.
But it's also probably being better too, right? Like it's kind of making the better decision of how to go about using the Force. Like you said, like it was so reactive the first times that we saw him use it as defense and just he didn't know the strength that he had. And now that he's more aware and we see him putting a Rancor to sleep, like again, I think just him sitting here talking with these hermit crabs that look like rocks to Din and the rest of the audience, to see all those hermit crabs walk up, it goes to show that he was training. He was training his mind and his soul with connecting with the Force. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I'm again, they sort of continue showing us these connections with the Force through creatures and through animals, and I love that about Dave Filoni's Star Wars stuff. It's so good. Let's keep going here. Off lamenting about losing to a foundling half his size, the boy that lost is what I'll call him for now until we get to the part of the episode where he's called his actual name. The boy that lost is suddenly scooped up by a giant winged dragon bird creature, which Bo at one point calls a raptor. And as Din attempts to shoot it, Paz stops him, warning him that it might kill the child. Instead, they decide to take off using their jetpacks to follow it back to its lair. Flying through the canyons, their jetpacks start to run out of fuel, and they have to land. But then, overhead, they hear the booming sound of the gauntlet as Bo chases after the winged beast into the sunset. So listen, they gotta find somewhere else to train, because Jimmy Kimmel's nephew must be the most tantalizing food source for these giant monsters or something. And there's such terrible luck. But let's talk about this creature. What did you think of the Raptor?
Well, I to build off your point, I think that after the crocodile, the turtle, tortoise, giant kaiju in the first, I think I would have been the Mandalorian that would have been like, this is not fine. We cannot live in Jurassic Park. We need to go. And meanwhile the armor is like, we will not move. We like it here. It's like, I don't like it here. And the fact that Paz is like, it always gets away. It's like, how many times does this happen? Like, whose kids? Oh, but when your son is in danger, then we'll all
search
go.
Party galore. Let's go. Get everyone on the ship. Yeah.
I see you, Paz, with your sore loser son. Yeah. I mean, I thought that it was a great way to introduce, again, the Star Wars stuff, which is very Filoni, like you said, the man versus nature archetypal struggle, and also to set up what hangs over every storyline here, whether it's Armorer teaching Grogu, whether it's them going after Ragnar, whether it's Bo and Din trying to parent Grogu, whether it's Keller and Beck protecting Grogu. It's all about, or even the Raptor, it's like she's trying to feed her babies. She, from her perspective, you guys are the animal, and so it's all, a matter of guardianship and protecting. And when we get to the end, which we'll talk about, the Foundling applies to like 3 or 4 different parties in this episode. So
the best part about the season so far,
it tees up the entire theme with Ragnar getting scooped up.
Love it. I don't think we've seen the Raptor I'm saying Raptor because that's how it's spelled but maybe just Raptor. But I don't think we've seen it in Star Wars. But I will say, especially with the way the eyes are shaped and the eyes on the baby versions, if you look at the creature that Boba Fett is riding in the holiday special, I will tell you right now, there's definitely some design brought over from that creature.
I wouldn't be
and
surprised,
in a way, this kind of feels like belated justice, because if you watch the way that Boba Fett treats that poor little creature, not little creature, but the giant thing he's riding on, I don't know. I just felt like maybe they had the gun, the rifle borrowed from there. So I'm wondering if maybe they borrowed some design aesthetics from that thing, just the face of it.
I see. But with the bulging eyes.
With the bulging eyes, and I mean maybe that's just like a creature, a standard creature look, but you. you can see that, they usually tame these beasts to ride on them because, I mean, as cool as jetpacks are, like, they're just running out of fuel all over the place, and it's nice to see some actual limitations with these jetpacks.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. To see the limitation makes it plausible. It's not like they're Iron Man with their infinite arc reactor that's just an infinite amount of energy. I thought the CGI was really good for the creatures. I think it was well done. It didn't look shoddy or like, TV standard. Again, it's just how this Star Wars series seems to elevate so that it feels overly cinematic. And everyone was, like, people were talking about the idea of, like, well, they should just get off this planet. It's like Jurassic Park. It's, all these different creatures. And I think it's interesting that they occupy a planet like this because, they're kind of seen as tamers of
giant beasts.
Of giant beasts. So it kind of feels fitting that they would be sort of up for the challenge. But that said, like, they got to do something about their younglings and where they're training. Let's, can we train indoors? Maybe it's a little more protected. Because like, this is what, the second time, even with his helmet on, he still looks tantalizing, right? So it's
delicious.
Yeah,
it was like a little appetizer. Yeah, I mean, you touched on it there. I go back to season 1, like, to walk the way of the Mandalore is to be both hunter and prey. Like, I almost wonder if to leave would be seen as a weakness, like, from the armorer's point of view. Like, we don't relocate, we just deal with it. We picked this place, we're gonna stay in this place. I would love to know more about that kind of stuff. This is one of those projects where, because Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing so much, they haven't, like, doing so much expansion, they canceled the visual dictionary, and, like, they're sort of holding back on that stuff. I can't wait for 6 years from now when we have just books on books on books of all the details. But yeah, I mean, it's really compelling to see their relationship with this kind of stuff. And like you said, jetpacks, they put the Battlefront 2 on them. Like, you don't get to fly around forever. Get down. And now we know that season 5 Mandalorian, we're gonna have 3 dragon riders, ice and fire style, and it'll be
Let's
great.
go. I'm so stoked. And it's just funny you mentioned Battlefront. Like, there's so many moments of this show over the past 2 seasons into this 3rd season that do feel like a video game. So it makes a lot of sense that they wouldn't just let them fly forever. But so listen, after scouting the beast location, Bo returns to tell Din, Paz, and the armor her plan. Din says he'll join her, and the armorer asks Paz to join the Shriek Hawk training team to accompany them, and saying that she'll supply them with the extended lariats for their launchers, and she recommends that they go in quiet for the safety of the Foundling. They take off, and Grogu, all sort of sad looking, is just standing there, and the armorer asks him to join her inside the forge, as she uses a heavy machine to forge a new piece of armor. And in doing so, the loud noise sparks and reminds Grogu of the night of Order 66 at the Jedi Temple, where as Jedi are being shot down around him, he's led to an elevator, and he goes down the elevator, and as the elevator door opens, it's revealed that Kelleran Beck was the one who saved Grogu that night. The two take off in a speeder as they're pursued by 2 clone low-altitude assault transport gunships after getting hit in the engine and then narrowly escaping a train tunnel. They finally land on a platform where they're greeted by a fleet of Senate guards who lend them an H-type Nubian yacht to escape in, and they do so by flying off the planet into hyperspace. Okay, so, after countless theories of who might be the one to save Grogu from the temple, not in my wildest dreams did I think that we'd see Ahmed Best in that role, but I have never been so happy to be so wrong. Alden, what did you think of Kelleran Beck, also known as, by the way, like the Sabered Hand? Come on, like, what a badass name. What did you think of seeing him in this moment?
So you said not in your wildest dreams. It's funny. This was in my wildest dreams, but it still doesn't feel real. Even talking about it now after, shell shock for the last 24 hours or so. Like, I remember we found out that Grogu was a Coruscant Temple youngling from Ahsoka in chapter 13. was a long time ago already. That episode came out in late 2020. So it's like it's been a while, and we've all been sitting on this. I had my favorite theories. My top theory of like this probably won't happen, but I'd love it, was Gunji and the other kids that maybe they got him out as a team. With the tooth. But then it was like I was like, but we probably not. I don't see them being in live action. Doing a child Wookiee suit and keeping that cuteness might be hard. You already mentioned Lumpawaru this episode. As much as we love him, kind of weird looking. So it's like, and then I thought maybe more realistically, it'll probably just be a random Jedi. I thought a cool one might maybe like one-handed Mace Windu in his dying moments, getting as many people as he can out. I had all these ideas, and a couple of times over the past few years, because Jedi Temple Challenge was such a joy early in the pandemic era, just on YouTube every week. It was just such a fun show. Friends of mine would be like, what if it was like Keller and Beck? That'd be cool. We don't know what era he's from. We thought maybe he's High Republic, but he has sort of a prequel aesthetic. So
they never really established the timeline for him, right?
Yeah, you never get any hint of when that show is, and it's canon adjacent sort of little bubble.
Yeah.
And then we're watching this scene, and I tell you, gentlemen, I am such a stickler for watching it. I don't like to have the subtitles on. I don't like to have lights on. I'm laser focused. When one of them said, "Get him to Kelleran," I was like, hold on. I paused, turned the subtitles on, backed it up 10 seconds and hit play again. And I said, no. I was like, surely that must be the Easter egg. And like, the hallway will get blown up and he'll have to move a different way.
And it'll cut away.
Yeah, he'll have to pivot, and that's cute. That's fun. Then someone else said it. Then he gets in the elevator, and I'm like, these guys, these madmen, they're going to do it. And surely when that elevator opened, I just gasped. I couldn't believe what was happening. And it was, it's perfect. I mean, I tweeted about this a lot, about how Ahmed Best, on screen and off, whether it's as Jar Jar Binks / Kelleran and the game show, or in real life, he's always been about the kids. So how perfect is this? Like, who's going to protect the kid that we all fell in love with as a fandom, as a world? It's this guy. And for him to have this moment, it's just 20 plus years later, was awesome. And like, even as we're recording, somebody texted me an image of Ahmed put up of his Jedi tunic, talking about the runes and how it's like inspired by Afrofuturism and all this stuff.
Okay.
Like,
I was gonna I was gonna ask about that, because his costume looked very High Republic, like you brought it up. Like, it almost felt like the similar to the librarian. I can't remember her name.
Jocasta.
Yeah, and her garments very similar to that, which kind of spoke a little more High Republic. So that's great that there's been an explanation that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Super excited. Super excited
cool.
to have experience. So I mean, I could talk about this all day, but like for you guys, like, did you watch the game show? I wanted to ask.
I never did. I saw I saw clips from it, and I was like, that looks really fun. After seeing this, I actually kind of want to go and watch it myself now.
It'll have a surge.
I think, and I mean, I know it was they stopped it, I think, during the height of the pandemic. They're not continuing with it, but the fact that we get his character out of it, it's such a Dave Filoni answer to this question of just like I could just literally see someone being in the room talking to Dave and like, hey, here's all of our options, here's what the fans want. He goes, Keller and Beck, and it's just like, what?
Hey, did you guys see that game show? Tips his cowboy hat.
Because he was all over that, and I think it makes sense from in a canon standpoint. He's so close working with the younglings. Grogu would trust him, would see him as a mentor. And Alden, the first time I ever heard your voice was on your recent Star Wars and Mental Health episode, which, by the way, go listen to that if you haven't already on Ahch-To Radio. But on the topic of mental health, Ahmed's story is, I mean, we all know, is such a rough one. And to see him in this role was so incredible. I remember, Justin, you and I were at the Phantom Menace panel, Chicago 2019, and the massive stand-up applause for Ahmed as he walked on stage was so intense and so powerful. And so to have someone going from being so tortured by the most toxic members of the fan base to being celebrated for his contribution to Star Wars, and now he's the one to save the one character that seems to be universally loved by everyone. Oh, it just makes my heart so happy.
Well, this is a moment of redemption for Ahmed Best. You know, it's allowing him to fully embrace the Star Wars-ness inside of him. Like you see him in these fight scenes. He is so kinetically, you know, into it. The way he stares down the clone troopers, you know, the way he uses the Force, like it's like he wanted to do this for a really long time. So I was so happy to see the elevators open and to see Ahmed Best standing on the other side. I did make a prediction a long time ago, whether it was online or offline, that the savior could have been Jar Jar Binks, which I would like to say could still be a possibility. Yeah. There could still be a possibility for that. But I think this is such a big win. I like you said, like Dave Filoni and Favreau wrote this episode, and I think this is such a Filoni answer to Who Saved Grogu, plucking the most unlikely, as you said, canon adjacent character and canonizing them in Star Wars, making it relatable and giving him time to shine. I think, I gasped, I applauded, I got a little teary just to see him in this role after all the shit that he dealt with, which was just unfair because it wasn't him that needed to feel that. I can get fans maybe being a little off about the fusion of Jar Jar Binks, but the way they attacked, it's unnecessary and it was unfair. And I still remember that moment at Celebration, seeing him come up, and we stood up and we gave him an applaud, because not only just because of like the fact that he was Jar Jar, but because he was so open about his story and about his journey and what had happened and what he went through. And I think beyond anything, everyone has respect for him for what he went through. So this was a huge win, and I was very happy to see it.
Absolutely, so beautifully said. And I think that the way that it works on both those levels, the real world level, the meta level, the Easter egg level. You mentioned Jar Jar. It's like, well, it's a Nubian craft. Like, Jar Jar is a representative. Like, is he the point of contact? You got those Naboo guards. You have the ship. Like, Jar Jar, send me your guys, see if they can bring the ship.
Exactly.
Like, is it that kind of thing? Then, the thematic level with what we talked about with children and protecting them, and then the real world level, Ahmed's struggle. And then Kelleran's first line in this, which we know to be the most tragic, heartbreaking moment in the Star Wars mythology. Mm-hmm. His first word is, "Everything's gonna be okay, kid." Like, that's it doesn't get better than that. Yeah. Like, it's so beautiful and
well done. Yeah.
And then, like, for fans who, a few years ago, before these Disney Plus shows, a lot of people felt, and I understand this, a lot of people felt like, it feels like the movies don't really acknowledge things, like, it feels kind of separate. Is it really one big thing like we thought it was? Then you start to get like, oh, Cobb Vanth, he's from the interludes of the books, and oh, Cad Bane is in live action. And then this is I think the furthest they've ever gone into, if you consume everything, you will be rewarded, and sometimes you'll be rewarded in really, really emotional ways. And I'm excited to see what happens with Kelleran, and I'm excited for Kelleran to get a figure, to get shirts, to get posters.
He's already got a poster online, man. I'm so happy that he's got the poster.
Give me the sideshow. I want the sideshow hot toys. Like, let's get the whole thing.
I honestly, I think just to your point, Alden, that I think that the one thing that I'm loving about what Star Wars is doing right now is it's all encompassing. Mm-hmm. It's all encompassing of its canon, and I think this is just another example of how Star Wars is doing that, is pulling something so adjacent to the main story. But can we just for a second think about how crazy it would be if Ahmed Best is talking to Jar Jar Binks?
But what if an older Ahmed Beck is also somehow in that scene, or shows up in some way? Like, I think just to see the two of them talking to each other in Star Wars, they can make that magic happen.
It's possible. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great, and I still think that there's an opportunity here, like you were pointing out, that Nubian ship. It had to come from someone. There's only two senators that are there, Padme and Jar Jar at that time. So
and Padme, not Padme, right?
Well, Padme would have been off getting would have been trying to get Anakin at that point, I guess. Right? Like, she would have been trying to figure out what was going on.
Crying crying, which sounds like a joke, but she was.
No,
like
she could have also gotten Jar Jar to set up the ship and make sure that people were there, and then Jar Jar went about doing it.
Get as many Jedi and younglings.
Exactly. Be prepared. Be prepared for anyone, because we'll expect. And he handled that, right. And kind of, I was saying to Nate offline, the fact that Jar Jar's sort of the reason why Palpatine came into power and became the Emperor. I believe it was the vote that he did in was it Revenge of the Sith, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, in Attack of the Clones, he votes for the emergency powers. That way
exactly.
They can,
there it is.
authorize.
Yes.
He votes on her behalf. That's the problem, is that Palpatine knew that he was representing her, and then they do the "if only Senator Amidala were here."
Why, he's in an earshot, right? So that he's like, I should do it. Yep, right, I got you.
Yeah.
Come here, bud.
Oh man. Before we move on for the story here, I know we've discussed this quite a few times, Justin, on the Watch Club previously. But do you think there's a specific reason they pushed so hard to save Grogu, or was it that Grogu, is a youngling, and just like how the Mandalorians see the highest honor as saving a foundling, so do the Jedi, and maybe that's part of the sort of the reflection that they're trying to show in this episode? Or do you think there's like a legit no, this kid's super special, we need to make sure out of all the younglings, because the younglings upstairs, they're getting unfortunately they're getting taken out. So what about this? Do you think, Alden, that they know something is special about Grogu, or is it just another youngling?
I'm gonna go with it's just because he's out of all. It sucks to say. I don't want to make light of it, but it's like, kids upstairs, you're screwed. And their group, Reva's group, was on the main bridge passage through, when they're running through in her flashback. My friend Noah Olson on Twitter, he posited maybe when Kelleran Beck says there were no others, maybe the Reva's kids were trying to find him too. That would be a sad detail perhaps, but it's like maybe that's what he means, not other adults. Maybe it's like, how many kids did you get
younglings
out? But I think with Grogu, I don't think it's that he's special outside of being a Yoda Yaddle species, which we know is a rarity. So he's special in that way. I'm sure Yoda maybe kept an eye on him, like, oh, that's interesting, or Yaddle too, because Grogu is the same age as Anakin, which is a fun fact. I always think it's hilarious. Vader and this kid are the same age. But it's like, maybe they were like, oh, one of us, that's not common. But I think that in terms of the practicality of it, I just think it's because he's alone. Grogu, there are no other kids in that particular hallway. And maybe it's because he can't speak, he can't call for help, I think it's just about infancy and helplessness.
Yeah. They did make it seem in the Ahsoka episode that he was sort of segregated, if you will. There was a sense of isolation to Grogu. Ahsoka was there. She never interacted and knew about him, right? Yeah. So it's interesting that she spent all that time in the Jedi Temple but had no awareness of Grogu.
Right. Yeah.
So there must have been some sort of level of secrecy or protection around him because of, as you're saying, because he is a species that is of Yoda and Yaddle, which is so funny to say in the same sentence, Yoda and Yaddle. Yodel Yaddle. Yeah. So I just think that there might be something, but I also think that you're absolutely right. There's a sense of vulnerability. There's a sense of infancy to him. He's not fully with the Force, so there is a urgency to protect, obviously, those who are, because of what's happening right now in the moment of Order 66. So it's hard to say. I think that there's still, what's great is that this answers the biggest question, but there's still a huge cloud of mystery around the rest of his story, because we're so far back. If we think about where Order 66 is and where we are right now in The Mandalorian, there's I think 30 or more years of time that's passed.
I mean, Grogu, he's the same age as Anakin, so Grogu's 23 or 22 when this all goes down.
Wow.
And so Grogu,
and now he's 50 something, right?
Now he's 50 when Din meets him. So if he got plucked up like most species do in his infancy, Grogu could have had 20 years of temple time. It's just that relative to his species, it was I've had this baby for 20 years. He's still not speaking. But that's just that's just what happens. I'm sure Yoda would have been he will. Don't worry. Well, that's and the funny thing is that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's Yoda also still doesn't quite necessarily speak properly, unless that's right, because we know that Yaddle, that's not how their species necessarily talks. It's just him.
Yes, that's such a funny detail too. Justina Ireland in Out of the Shadows has a Yaddle scene. She speaks properly. She's in Cataclysm. Lego, she speaks properly. So it's just like, is Yoda from like some continent? Is it like a is it like Australia versus like Europe? Like, is that the like?
And Yaddle was in Tales of the Jedi, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was
properly.
Yeah,
Bryce
it speaks
Dallas
properly.
Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard, right?
Yeah.
So
Love it.
yeah.
And what's really funny I've been thinking about with Grogu since the beginning is that he's 50, and this is, really like nerdy, like nitpicky, like I'm sure, when Yoda dies, he's 900, and he says for 800 years have I trained Jedi, whatever the line is, which means that Grogu's got 50 years to be ready, not only as an adult, but to train others. He's about to have the most rough 50 years of puberty there's ever been. He's got to be he's going to be, Din's going to be maybe in his 80s, 90s, and then Grogu's already going to be like, I'm ready to retire. Like,
just give me like Seth Rogen voicing Grogu when he hits puberty. That would be great.
I told you, Justin, last week's episode, I was like, I'm so worried for Grogu to talk because I don't want to. I hope I like his voice.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah. Exactly.
So as long as it's not Seth Rogen, let's keep going here. After the flashback, the armorer presents Grogu with his next piece of armor, a rondelle imprinted with the signet of the Mudhorn that she says he'll grow into as he grows stronger and into his station. I know we just stopped, but I want to quickly just chat about this. What did you think of the Beskar circle that she gave Grogu?
I have been predicting since he got the chainmail mithril shirt that you don't give him unbreakable armor and then the ability to leap like Yoda without teeing up some sort of he's gonna jump in front of a blaster bolt for his dad. And now they've doubled down. They put a circle there. I was like, because Din did that for him in the season 2 finale. He jumped in front of Gideon's blast. I think that at some point someone will have Din, dead to rights, and Grogu will jump in front of him or something like that. And it'll be like the Frodo moment where he gets stabbed in the Mines of Moria, and everyone will be like, "Oh God!" And then it'll be, "Oh, okay, he's got the armor.
He's fine."
It was so tough to watch his little face though when she's making it, and he's all sad, and it's just every time it cuts to his sad little eyes. But also the fact that she's like, "You'll grow into it," and I'm like, "Not by much." I don't know.
I mean,
much
that's
more
like
growing he's got
on an adult piece of like medieval armor. That's just usually for like a shoulder joint or something, and it's his whole belly
armpit.
A little armpit. So it's like, I'm curious, like, are you gonna adjust, like, you could have made him a little square little breastplate, but it is funny. I think that I wonder, like, will he show Din at some point and be like, look at what I got, like Superman pose. It was cool though. I mean, the armor is such an interesting, compelling character because she is, we know as like, we have the God view of, we know all the characters even if they don't know each other. We know she's wrong about so much, and that she's an extremist, and that she's a kind of fundamentalist conservative weirdo on the spectrum of Mandos. But she's not without compassion and care. I didn't feel like Grogu was unsafe with her. She means what she says when she talks about protecting and solidarity and loyalty. It's just that you're looking at Grogu and it's like, man, like, I just want you to be able to be a child, and I know that this woman will not give you a normal life.
But you see that too, though, with Din, like in the way that he's forcing him to like go the next step. You have to be an apprentice, right? Like in that moment, without really acknowledging, like maybe there's a way to have the best of both here. You don't need to abandon that entirely. But I just want to applaud this season for really diving deep into the lore and the sort of primitive nature of the Mandalore, and reoccurring this idea of how the armorer and the experience of watching this metal be molded into a piece of armor, kind of unlocks the soul of whoever's there, right? Like we saw it with Din. I think it was in episode chapter 3 of season 1 when he has his own how he became a foundling moment, and flashback, and now we see Grogu have that same experience. And I think it cements this idea of like there's such a deep lore to the Mandalore culture that just hasn't been fully explored. And this season is really digging deep into it. And spending time with the covert, seeing these younglings, seeing them fight together. This whole episode just feels like a real testament to it. And then you have this real moment with the armorer who, like she is, when she says this is the way, she means this is the way, right? Like that is her belief. So, but yeah, I just think that they've done such a great job with enriching the culture of the Mandalore.
And I love that his signet is the Mudhorn. Clan Mudhorn is what we'll call them, I guess, at this point. Let's keep going here. As they land far enough away from the beast as to not alert it, Bo, Din, Paz, and the Shriek Hawk training team continue on foot, traversing the rocky planet. They reach the base of the spire, where they tuck in and make camp. Just as they're about to eat, Bo asks Din how they're supposed to eat when other people are around, which he explains that they all go off and find a place to take off their helmets and eat by themselves. But Paz tells Bo that because she's the leader of the war party, she gets to stay by the fire as she eats. They wake up the next morning, and they all climb, ensuring a stealthy approach. And once they reach the top, they don't see much inside the nest, but Din uses his helmet to detect a heat source. Paz ignores Bo's request for him to wait and storms the nest, saying, "He's my son!" And he searches through the nest, calling out for Ragnar, until he's attacked by 3 baby raptors. So let's pause here. What did you think of first off, the respect shown to Bo around the campfire? And what do you think of the reveal that, yes, this abducted foundling is Paz Vizsla's son?
I was excited to see that Paz slowly, with not a lot of scenes, has become kind of a fully fleshed out character, and to, or at least more so, like he started as being that's beefy Mandalorian, and he has a Black Series figure already because he's beefy and he's cool, and we know it's Jon Favreau. But now he's got his own family. We know that House Vizsla goes on. We know that Ragnar has an importance too. That the blue armor and his little blue child's helmet, that there's a connection there, and that he is not the Din's biggest fan, but that they can connect as fathers, and that they can connect through the way, and that they've, as much as they've been at each other's throats literally twice in season 1 and in Book of Boba Fett, they also have had each other's backs, and that when Din needed to escape Navarro in season 1, Paz was there, and he gave him the salute when they flew by.
That
was a dope moment.
Yeah, it was so good. And then similarly, now it's like when they need each other, they're there, and I think that a brotherhood is forming there. It's like, I don't have to like you, but there is that moment of thanks, and Din just says this is the way, and so I think that this was all really effective.
Yeah, I said it last week. I said I think there's going to be a bond that's going to grow between Paz and Din, because I don't know what Bo-Katan, her intentions are. I think in some way she might sabotage the group within, and maybe stir the pot a little bit based on her beliefs versus the armorer's beliefs, and we'll talk about that scene later. I'm thinking that this, while Paz was able to pay respect, which I think his creed, what he believes in, that goes a long way. So I think in the moment he is trusting of Bo because she is leading this charge. So she says, you know what, you're the leader, you deserve the respect. It is your honor to sit here by the fire. But really, at the end of the day, he disregarded that order that she said and just decided to charge to save his son. I don't know if that respect really is as earned yet for Bo, but you can see in the moment where Din passes Ragnar back to Paz, even with their helmets on, there's a sense of gratitude. So there is a bond that's forming there. So I think, to Alden's point, yeah, they might have been at each other's throats, but I think we're seeing them bond together, and I think that they're going to find a way to be on each other's side, because I know Paz Vizsla's heritage has had quite a problem with Bo-Katan's past, right? So there's a history there.
Which is why I thought it was kind of really intriguing the moment that he sort of says, like, you get to sit by the fire. And I it's interesting, too, because on one hand, you're sort of looking at this like, that's just his Mandalorian, that's just, the Children of the Watch, that's their tradition, that's kind of, this is the way sort of thing. But at the same time, you got to imagine her taking the initiative to save his son probably brought her up a little bit in his eyes. And again, with the that being the highest honor that they can sort of achieve is saving a foundling. Ragnar, if truly is a Vizsla and not just like an adopted foundling, who do you think the mother could be? Do we have any ideas on who Paz might have gotten with?
I'm gonna have to scan through the episode and be on the lookout for the T visors that are always used for the women. How there's a different shape.
Yeah, there's a different shape.
If there's a slight lookover or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought it was a foundling. The episode is titled Foundling. I think it's referring to foundlings in different ways, as you were hinting at. Alden.
So he only claimed him as his son then.
I think so. I think so. Again, when we were doing the Watch Club for Chapter 17, I had made the prediction that that this kid must have meant something to Paz. The way they cut that scene and they showed the kid with Paz's face and then the way Paz comes in and pushes the kid out of the way and starts shooting, like it was indicated early on that there was some sort of connection between Paz and this boy. So I think there's still more to explore there, maybe, in terms of, is he a foundling or is he of his blood, right?
We'll have to wait for those books to come out that actually say, Ragnar Vizsla, or maybe you have to go back into the credits to see if maybe he's credited as such.
Jimmy Kimmel Vizsla.
Jimmy Kimmel, yeah, exactly. I also wanted to shout out the cinematography from Dean Cundy was so excellent in this episode. I didn't mention it earlier, but that shot of Bo chasing the beast into the sunset was so fantastic, or just seeing the Mandalorians traveling in a line on the dunes was just breathtaking, and I think it really made, I think one of the complaints that I remember we kept having, and it seems so naive, some of the complaints that we had in season 1 back in the day, Justin, but of the montages, okay, it's like a walking montage, but this makes the travel montage so much more enjoyable when you've got these beautiful landscapes that are just so gorgeous and so shot so well, and I don't know, I thought it was really great.
Yeah, I just wanted to add about the cinematography and direction. Carl Weathers is great at action. Obviously, the man knows action himself.
Yeah.
But he also did The Siege, which had the great Razor Crest mini dogfight with that wide in season 2.
So
I
good.
love the way that Carl Weathers and Dean Cundy did Din catching Ragnar in this.
Yes.
A great sort of helicopter-y looking skydiving shot. And that moment of double floating right before he scoops him up into that.
And you hear that flute?
Yes.
That flute just comes in, and I was just like, woo, yes.
It's so sad. They must sit there with all right, hit the flute. Now. He did something cool. Hit it now. It's so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, after staving off the attack from the 3 young beasts, its mama shows up to feed them Ragnar after regurgitating him. Paz flies towards him, but as his son is dropped, Paz gets caught in the mouth of the beast. It flies off, and the other Mandalorians fly after it. Eventually, they free both Paz and his son as the beast falls entangled in wires into the water below. Before it can fly out, it's eaten by another one of those big crocodile beasts or alligator beasts or whatever they are, like the one we saw in episode 1.
There's always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish. Let's all say it together. There we go. Din returns Ragnar to Paz, and Paz thanks him, and he responds with, "This is the way." Upon returning, the covert cheers for the safe return of the foundling, which the armorer tells Bo is the highest honor of the creed. She responds with, "This is the way," and she also mentions that they've brought them 3 more foundlings in need of care and training, and we see the 3 baby raptors being brought out of the ship. So some extra brownie points for both Din and Bo this episode. What do you think this rescue means, and we kind of already touched upon it, but what do you think this rescue means for their reputation?
I feel like with Bo-Katan, it's an interesting situation where she is this is not sustainable, right? The armorer actively blames Clan Kryze for what went down, particularly Bo-Katan, saying she's a cautionary tale and that her reign ended in the purge. On the flip side, Bo-Katan directly blames the Children of the Watch, saying your cult abandoned Mandalore way before the purge. So that's just, it's gonna come to a head. Right now, what's interesting is that Bo's realizing I can't just guns blaze this because it's not black and white. And as much as Din is brainwashed, it is undeniable that they have at least the moral, not high ground, but the moral base of we do mean what we say about protecting children and the innocent and all that stuff. And that's how the cult gets you, right? Is that they are right about one thing and then they do all this other stuff. And so it's like, she sees Din and Grogu and she cares about them, and she cares about saving Ragnar, who's an innocent, because she's lost everything, her family. She's nostalgic for her father, obviously Satine. Her castle's destroyed, her group left her, so I think she's in a vulnerable place and maybe thought for a second these people aren't all bad, and that's why she went the extra mile. And Din feels like, wow, I brought someone else into my family. But then, we'll talk about that end scene where suddenly gaslighting begins. So it's hard to say. I think she went the extra mile because she cares, but Bo-Katan's she's committed. Sometimes to great things, sometimes to bad things. She'll always go that extra mile.
Yeah, I think doing the rescue was obviously in good faith. She understood, she wants to help these people. She wants to do that. I totally agree. But I do think she is feeling the situation out. She's trying to win people over. I think, like you said, she can't necessarily just go in and stir things up. I think she's getting a sense of how does this all work, right? And like you pointed out, Alden, like they have both said on opposite ends, that they have been the cause of why Mandalore and the Mandalorian culture failed. It's all there for some compelling political drama that might, blow out to like a full-on divide between this group of who they want to stick with, the Armorer or Bo-Katan. And I think that's what's going to really drive a wedge for Din. Where does his allegiance lie? Is it with the Armorer and his people, or is it with his new friend Bo, right? And that's I think is going to be a huge challenge as they go through. But obviously they look good. They look like the heroes here. They've earned more respect of the entire group. They're all the better for it. But I think now this was strategic for Bo to do this so that she can kind of be elevated and be seen as someone of good faith.
Well, and I'm really looking forward to maybe another moment of Dad Paz and Dad Din kind of being dads together. I would love to see, maybe even like a sequence where they've got their kids like fighting each other again, but they're both having a conversation about it and joking about it. Because I do think that beef is now squashed. I hope, and I hope, Justin, if you're right, if they are. If we are going to see maybe a split up of this covert, I really do think that Paz is
poetry,
man.
It's going to happen again, just like it happened to Mandalore. It's going to happen to this Mandalorian covert.
Interesting. Let's get to that final scene. Our final scene, we see Bo sitting in the forge as the Armorer asks if she'd like the signet of the Night Owl for Bo's replacement pauldron. But Bo, while staring longingly at the metal mythosaur skull on the wall, or I guess Beskar mythosaur, they probably made it out of Beskar, asks if it would be acceptable to wear that instead. The Armorer says she agrees, and that the mythosaur is for all Mandalorians. After the piece is done, Bo asks the Armorer what she'd say if she saw a mythosaur. And the Armorer says she'd be very lucky, as it's a very noble vision. Bo says, no. I actually saw one on Mandalore, and she's like, you will see many things when you choose to walk the path of the Mandalore. And Bo's like, no, it was real. I was in the waters. And the Armorer just responds with, this is the way. And the episode ends the same way it did last week, with Bo staring at that mythosaur skull. So why do you believe Bo chose the mythosaur skull for her second signet? And do you think the Armorer believes her?
I think that the Armorer does believe her deep down. But the Armorer is in an interesting spot where, again, she does not like Bo-Katan Kryze. We know this. But she was in public when they arrived in the previous episode. She welcomed her in. The Armorer is in this place now where, like leaders that manipulate people, she is like, I gotta stick to rules in front of other people. Right. Hey, welcome to our club, I guess. And now I feel like this slow, the gaslighting begins of like, hey, did you really see it? This is the way, I guess. Like it's like, you of all people, the religious leader, should jump at this. but you're not because you don't like that Bo-Katan saw it. And that's the truth. I think that's the underlying thing, is that if it had been Din, if it had been Paz, if it had been anybody, you would have been all over their claim. Because it's Bo-Katan, I bet after Bo-Katan left the cave, she was like, why her? Why her and not me or someone in my crew? I think that there's a tension there of like, this is supposed to herald the resurgence of their people. Bo-Katan already was supposed to herald it when she wielded the Darksaber in Rebels Season 3. So
yeah,
and we saw how that went. And so, or Season 4 rather. So it's that interesting sort of tension there of Bo-Katan once again has an opportunity, but somebody doesn't want her to have that opportunity. And I think as for why she chose it, I think Bo, much like, this is a Filoni project as much as it's a Favreau project. He loves his Lord of the Rings. I feel like she's sort of a Boromir-esque character where she would do the whole, like, why not use this ring for good reasons?
Oh,
and I think that Bo probably sees the Mythosaur and has been thinking about it and wants it here because she's like, yeah, I am that bitch. Like, I am that. I am the one. And I think that she was down in the dumps, didn't fight Din for the Darksaber when she could have, did not challenge him when they had Gideon, on the light cruiser at the end of Season 2, and she was sad in her castle and everything, and maybe like, I'm out of the game now. I think now she feels like, oh no, I'm back in the game.
Yeah, exactly. She decided to not tell Din about what she saw because she knows that he currently wields one half of what will inevitably bring the people of Mandalore together, and that is the Darksaber. And if she is able to tame and ride the Mythosaur, she will be seen as the just leader. So maybe she's thinking, well, I don't need the Darksaber. I saw Mythosaur. I can tame that, and that's gonna be how I'm gonna win my people back. And I think that this is all, for, again, I say political gain, right? Like she's making moves cautiously. And also I think that like you were saying with the Armorer, it is very much like keep your friends close but keep your enemies closer mentality that I get from her, and which is why she's being overly friendly and welcoming of Bo. So I think that you're right on the money there with there's going to be some conflict between these two, and I think what we're seeing here is just sort of like a little tidbit of it.
I think you're both right. I think I took it in a little bit of a different way when I saw this, and maybe I'm taking the wars out of Star Wars. But I said it last week, and I think I might continue to say it, actually, despite all this. I think one of the main themes of this season will be compromise by the end. I think Bo might not get back the life that she thought she'd get, and she won't necessarily give in to all the rules of this covert. Of this clan. And I think she's starting to see herself potentially as someone who can come in between the beliefs of her now disbanded crew and kind of what she sort of stood for in Season 2 and the beliefs of the Children of the Watch. And I think, to me, this was almost like a visual representation of that idea. She's literally at the center between these two ideologies. And Din and Grogu, I think, are also going to help, obviously, with other people seeing that, and have kind of already started to do that, as we've described with Paz. So I just, to me, I sort of saw it that way. But you're absolutely right. I mean, both the ways we're seeing it here could be correct, and the Armorer could still necessarily be one of the antagonists of this season.
I feel like we're getting some Star Wars, Game of Thrones level of political intrigue here.
Right.
Yeah, right? Like, right. It just feels like that.
It feels almost like there's a battle, like you brought up, like the symbols of legitimacy, like House of the Dragon Season 1. I don't want to spoil it for any of your listeners that did not watch that, but there is talk toward the end of the season of like, he has the Conqueror's name, he has the Conqueror's throne, he has the Conqueror's sword, like, of what gives you the perception, gives you the air of being the right person. And when you look at Mandalorians, it's an interesting thing where the Armorer right now has the way and the numbers. She has the people and she has their confidence. Din has the prophesized weapon, and Bo has the prophesized creature, the thing that they've built their entire thing on. All three of these people right now reasonably could have a way forward in some way, and it's almost like, who's going to want to create a way forward? And then you got people like Sabine Wren out there and Boba Fett that are kind of like, yeah, we just kind of do our own thing and have fun with all that. Sabine's like, I literally gave away the symbol of legitimacy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, she gave it away to Bo, right? And yet she was not deemed worthy by her people for her to actually have that, because she didn't win it in battle. So, again, it's I think you're so right with the way you said it. I didn't even think of the armorer as another fraction of that, of like the legitimacy of how she has the people, she has the belief, she has the numbers. Like, that is a huge part of it. So it's really a triangle of power.
I love it. And I still think, though, by the end of this series, maybe by the end of this season, but definitely by the end of this series, I do think this is the way. And we've been saying it each week, but I think it's changing. I think it's going to eventually it'll still be the same phrase, but it'll mean something completely different by the end of it. And I also want to just shout out Emily Swallow for her line delivery here, where I'm just like, does she believe her? Does she not believe? Like, just so phenomenal the way she says that line.
But it's funny how, like, that's almost like a sense of acknowledgement. Like, she said it to Din in chapter 17, and it kind of felt like she was passively agreeing, like, if you can do it, this is the way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see sort of like how she has to balance, like, we don't know what she feels as a person. We don't know how does this woman, what are her opinions? We just don't know, because she's so dogmatic and is so about, what is supposedly right by the book. But she has to have some opinions. I've always thought, her horned helmet is a sign that she either is a Zabrak or she threw in with Maul back in the day.
That would be so sick.
It's like, we don't know anything about her except for the fact that she's claims to be all about this. When Paz challenged Din in Book of Boba Fett and lost, she let Din leave in peace. I felt like she could have challenged him as well. She didn't. She's very like, she plays it chill. I like when she's like, "Come, Grogu, there's much to be attended to." Like her she's so like, I'm just gonna do my job, but she quietly wields power, and that makes her more frightening.
Oh yeah. Well said.
I love Grogu's little waddle every single time. But let's get to our overall thoughts and final score for this episode, which for this episode, we're going to be rating it on a scale of 1 to 5 rescued foundlings. And if you're counting, I think there are 5 rescued foundlings in this episode. Alden, as our guest, I'll have you start us off.
Overall thoughts. I mean, this was probably one of my favorite episodes of the whole show. It had everything. It had all the thematic elements that I love. It had the Star Wars pulpiness. It had the high fantasy. I keep saying, like, I loved Andor to death. It's not a shot at Andor, but in the wake of Andor, there was a lot of like, this is what it should be. And I love that Mandalorian season 3 came around and was like, yeah, we're going to give you a swamp pirate and a sad princess's castle's going to get blown up.
Yeah.
And here are some dinosaur birds. And
classic Star Wars.
Like, it just doubles and triples down on silliness, but takes itself so seriously. And this Keller and Beck stuff, I mean, like, enough to make anyone just emotional and everything. So this one for me is like, give me all 5 of them. Give me, I'll rank it up there. Give me 5 rescued younglings, or foundlings rather, and a youngling. Grogu's both. Just a fantastic. This is going to be up there for me for sure. And that top group episodes with things like the Sin and the Jedi, some of my favorites.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah. I'm totally with you, Alden. I think that, like, for this episode to be a 30-minute episode, the shortest episode that I think we'll get from this season, but yet it achieves so much, and it ticks all the boxes. It delivers on a fun adventure. It gave us motives and intrigue for the story for the rest of the season, and while also answering some of the biggest questions we had in and around Grogu's past. And while it gave us some answers, it didn't answer everything, which is great because there's still some mystery to unravel. The fact that they brought back Ahmed Best as Keller and Beck, I think that just elevates this episode. It really does hit an emotional point for us as fans. And sure, it was fan service, but it was fan service done right. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to be giving this one a 5 out of 5 rescued foundlings. I think please give Carl Weathers more to do in Star Wars, because I think this episode was well paced and well balanced. for everything that it had to deal with, like for being able to show us this sort of monster adventure rescue mission that had such a deep cut underlining message about who is the Foundling. Is it Ragnar? Is it Grogu? Is it Din? Or is it Bo-Katan? There's just so many different layers to it that I really appreciated. And, again, hats off to Filoni and Favreau for just being able to write these episodes so well and connect all the dots, bringing things back from past seasons and bringing in all of this canon lore. Like, bravo, well done. And, like you said, Alden, Andor was great. It's such a unique and different vibe from everything else that we've got from Star Wars. But, having spent now 4 episodes with this season 3 of The Mandalorian, it's refreshing to be back in this world. And in all honesty, this is classic Star Wars. So yeah, I'm going to be giving this 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, last week, with the people calling it the Mandalorian episode, and I definitely think it was beautiful to see that we could get a blend of those flavors. But again, this is that Star Wars comfort food back again. Short and sweet. I think it gave myself and obviously other Star Wars fans a beautifully unexpected and incredibly earned moment in more ways than one. And it was great to see the Mandalorians working together and to get to see a little bit more of their traditions, like we were talking about. Whether or not those traditions stay true by the end of this season or series, we'll have to wait and see. But we have to know where we came from to know where we might be going. And so I think that the more that we can sort of get of these sort of rules established to understand how important it might be to potentially keep some of them or break some of them, I think will be really rewarding as we kind of go through this. The mirror shown in this episode between the two cultures of that Grogu is representing, I think really helped to flesh out his experience throughout all this. And I just couldn't stop smiling this entire episode. I was just smiling and smiling and smiling, and obviously smiling even more when we got to see Ahmed Best. Carl Weathers knocked it out of the park. Absolutely. Again. Solid 5 out of 5 rescued foundlings. I was at a 4.5, but I'll be honest with you, after this conversation, bumped me right up to a 5.
And how do you have a child? How do you cut a foundling in half?
Grogu is kind of half. He's kind of half of a
just
foundling.
feed him to a raptor, and then that's it, right?
There we go. Well, they don't, but they don't chew. Maybe I guess the babies.
Oh, maybe
chew.
They're like birds. They look like giant pigeons, so they look like they would probably just eat like ducks.
Well, that is it for this week's Watch Club for The Mandalorian Season 3. Before we wrap, Alden, can you let our wonderful listeners know where they can hear your lovely voice and see your fantastic face, which thankfully isn't constantly covered by a helmet?
That is true, at least not yet. I might adopt that at some point when I just give up. You could find me personally at that Alden Diaz, ThatAldenDiaz is everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Hive, all that stuff. If we're still on Hive, I don't know if we are. And then as a community, you can find me Ahch-To Radio, Star Wars podcast. It's where I'm doing the Mandalorian Diaries right now. It's mostly one-on-one interviews with people, like you mentioned, Ryan Johnson was on, and we're going to have Lydia Kang on soon for High Republic. I also co-produce and co-host Casterly Talk with Ken Knapsack from the Force Center podcast feed, where we talk about Ice and Fire, Rings, Willow, all of our sword and sorcery fantasy stuff is there. Willow, so good.
We're praying for it.
Can't wait. The long wait. I can't wait, but I'm willing to endure the long wait.
Yes.
And then writing different places on the internet. Catch me at Star Wars Celebration, teaming up with my buddy Goose from Triad of the Force for a panel Sunday on the HoloNet news stage. So that's where you can find me in the immediate.
Cool. That's cool, man.
Thanks.
Very cool. Well, listen, we will have those links in the description below, so definitely everyone go check out Alden's stuff. As I said, just a wonderful light of positivity.
Yes.
In a sea of negative tweets. It's always so nice to see, and I appreciate it so much as a Star Wars fan. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or your predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, you don't have to see your son get abducted by a giant winged creature. Instead, Justin, can you let the children of the Watch Club know where they can reach us by holomessage?
Why, yes, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies, TV shows, and games, including our recent spoiler-free review for the Apple TV original series Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episodes 1 to 4. Alden, are you on that Ted Lasso train?
I am not on the Ted Lasso train, which I know makes me like a unicorn. But similarly, also on Apple, also Brett Goldstein. I love Shrinking.
Shrinking.
Yes. I'm watching Shrinking, so I'll get to Ted eventually.
There you go. Yeah. I keep saying it every time we talk about both those shows. They kind of feel like they're in the same cinematic universe, being the same creators. And so if you watch Ted Lasso, you'll kind of be like, oh, I could totally see maybe a crossover someday, which would be really dope. We also have our most recent This Week in Geek episode where we were so lucky to be joined by Q107's own Fearless Fred. We hung out with Fred to discuss some Star Wars movie news, his thoughts on The Punisher returning to Disney+, and we discussed his new comic series with its first issue out now. The series is called Dead Romans, and it's published by Image Comics. He was kind enough to share some insight on the new series, which looks absolutely incredible. I'm halfway through the first issue. I had to put it down so I could prepare for this podcast, but I know Justin's read it. It is pretty fantastic.
Chef's kiss. Nice.
If you enjoyed this Watch Club and can't get enough of Star Wars, we also have our Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 2 Watch Club going on right now, with next week being the double episode finale. Alden, I know you've been digging on that Bad Batch.
Oh, yeah, man. I am so ready to be sad. I am ready to see Crosshair make it right. However that has to be. I'm ready for him to lock eyes with Hunter before one of them probably dies.
Oh, God. I don't know about that.
I really hope not, man.
I hope not. I just want them all to be happy. I want Omega just to have a little, like, honestly, we were talking one time about, I was like, I just want a moment, a la, Last of Us 2, if you've played it, but I want Omega and Crosshair, and he's just teaching her how to shoot with a sniper. Like, let's
what if he's like, give me that bow, and he just starts mowing people down with her energy bow, like Legolas
shows her up.
Boom, boom, boom.
That could also be
That's
pretty
how you
fantastic.
use a bow. Yeah, I can see that.
Also, listeners, we have our interviews out now with this episode, or sorry, not with this episodes, but with producer for this series and director Rick Famuyiwa, as well as Bo-Katan Kryze herself, Katie Sackhoff, where Justin had the chance to sit down with both of them to discuss their voice in the larger Mandalorian story. And there's a lovely moment about Star Wars parenting between Katie and Justin. So go give those episodes a listen on your podcast service of choice, or you can check them out on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. And now that, listen, I know I'm going a little long on these this wrap up here, but I do want to just mention we've reached the halfway point for this series of our Watch Club. This is our 17th Watch Club, as we said at the beginning of this Watch Club. We've done this 17 times, and this will be the first time where, unfortunately, we will have to take a slight pause. As the host for this show, I'm going to be a bit busy between moving back to Ontario and something else I'm super excited for, and I just will not have the capacity to host the remaining episodes weekly, which I know is kind of a bummer, but alas, this is the way. But we will be putting out a spoiler-filled discussion about the remaining 4 episodes after the finale comes out on Disney Plus in April, because I have no idea how I would be able to live without talking about this on this podcast with my friends. So we will definitely be covering the remainder of the season, and I'm just so excited for it. Lastly, and this is the other thing that I'm so freaking excited for, and the reason for the delay, the Geekcentric podcast is going to Star Wars Celebration in London, and I am so stoked. We'll be dropping an episode shortly after Celebration wraps to let you know what we saw and to give you some highlights from the convention. Alden, I know you're heading to Celebration as well, as you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the panels? Besides the one that you're going to be a part of, what is the one that you're most excited for?
I will punch a child to get into the Ahsoka panel.
Punch one right in half.
I will punch it in half. I will throw it up at the dinosaur raptor. Like I'm sorry. It's not personal. If you see me doing the elbows, like to get in, like that to me, I mean, obviously Studio Showcase, everyone's excited for Studio Showcase.
Yes,
everyone wants to see movie plans, show announcements, Indiana Jones, like everyone wants to see that. But the Ahsoka panel, it's all been building to this. As a Rebels fan, like you were saying, Justin, like that's my favorite thing, and like I gotta be there.
That's the one. That's the one I chose as well. So stoked. So make sure to subscribe, click on all the things, follow us on all the socials, and be sure to check out also our TikTok at We Are Geekcentric. Justin's doing some TikToks over there as we try to be more like younglings. Alden, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we say, this is the way.